Well, I don't know what May Day has been like where you are, but those scenes from Greece got us thinking about whether the appeal of International Labour Day is changing. Well, let's go live now to Lucy Hockings, who's in the World's newsroom. What has it been like, Lucy, and elsewhere in the world?
Well, Michelle, it's not just here in Europe that there have been May Day protests. You've just seen those rather dramatic scenes in Greece, but you had Dhaka earlier in the programme as well. Let's take you through some of the countries in Asia, for starters, where they've been marking May Day. This is Cambodia. Thousands of garment factory workers have been out in force. They've been demanding higher wages and better working conditions. In Manila as well, the capital of the Philippines, of course, thousands there have been on the streets. They've been marching, calling for more job protection and rights as well in the workplace. Let's take you now to Turkey. We're about to talk a bit more about Turkey. It's been a day of violence there, actually, protesters clashing with police. The pictures you're seeing are from Istanbul. As you can see, water cannon and smoke grenades have been used on the crowds. Well, let's talk more about May Day, what it means to different countries in the world. With me here is Seref from BBC Turkish, Fernanda from BBC Brazil, and Fardad from BBC Persian. Thank you all for joining us here in the World's newsroom. Seref, let's start with you. Those rather dramatic pictures that we've been seeing from Istanbul. Why the violence?
Well, the 1st of May has always been a bit of a, let's say, high-stress day for Turkey. Back in 1977, unknown assailants fired guns on people who were in a rally on May 1st at Taksim Square in Istanbul, and several workers died as a result of that. So since then, it's always represented Taksim Square, especially where the protesters were trying to get to today, where the people celebrating Labour Day were trying to get to, has always been a bit of a sticking point.
And is that because Taksim Square now you are not allowed to protest there? Is it banned?
Well, it's not necessarily. It was for a while, and 2 years ago the ban was lifted, and in 2011 and 2012 people were able to go up there. But this year there is apparently a construction. The government says, the government's official line is that there's a construction going on Taksim Square, and so protesters can't get there. However, the protesters in turn are claiming that on the 28th of April, just a couple of days ago, another rally took place there with in attendance people from the government and the governor as well. So the opposition, or rather the people who want to go there, do not find this as a plausible excuse.
What's been happening in Brazil, Fernanda?
Well, May Day is a bit different in Brazil. It's normally a party day. Thousands of workers, they take to the streets in very big events that are organized by the trade unions, and with loads of music concerts, for example, and prize draws. And this year especially, it's a quite important May Day, because Brazil is this year celebrating 70 years since the law which regulates labor in the country was introduced.
I mean, you were saying to us earlier that this is a day traditionally where the government announces an increase in the minimum wage.
Yes,
extraordinary. Has that happened today, or is it going to happen?
No, it didn't happen today. It's actually changed a few years ago, and it's now been introduced in January. But yes, you're right. Traditionally, this is when minimum wages were announced.
Are people out on the streets, Fardad, in Iran?
Not necessarily on the streets. It's for the 6th consecutive year that Iranian authorities didn't issue a permit for workers to come on the streets and protest, but there has been some gatherings, one in one stadium in Tehran where about 4,000 workers gathered and protest against the situation for workers and the very low minimum wage they're receiving, which is under $130 per month right now.
Because are there trade unions in Iran?
There are and there are not. There is no official independent trade union because it's banned by the law, but there are some semi-government, if you like, trade unions which are not as active as an independent trade union would be.
And what do the authorities say about the fact that they ban some of their gatherings, these gatherings?
They're not issuing the permit, basically. They're not saying that we're not letting you to do protest, but for doing any sort of protest in Iran, you have to have a permission, which they're not issuing. But as I said, there has been another gathering of 4,000 people in a small stadium in Tehran.
And Trev, how much do the protests in Istanbul, particularly today, just reflect the schism in society in Turkey right now, the massive changes?
Oh, I think it's a massive representation. Turkey is going through some fundamental changes in its political and societal spheres. And May 1st really traditionally is fundamentally against many of the things that the government is for. It is more secular, for example, and it also is anti-capitalist and more socialist and on the side of the workers. So it is definitely, lately, in Turkish streets, you can see the tension increasing, society getting a bit more polarized as Turkey goes through these changes to solve its problems so domestically. And so I think with the protests this year, and despite the AKP government, the Justice and Development Party, having the majority vote, it is a fragile one. And Turkish government it seems like they want to have this under control. And it's been very paranoid since the coup allegations surfaced several years ago. So I think today is definitely a reflection of that.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Before we leave the World's Newsroom, Michelle, just to bring you some of the comments that we've got on our Facebook page from around the world. Zoltan Maria in Spain, you were mentioning earlier those huge protests taking place, about 80 cities in Spain marking May Day today, says especially worth it in times like this, in which so many rights are being taken from us again. Robin has contacted us from Sweden. Who would have thought? May Day, he says, is huge in Sweden. Everyone takes to the streets to show their dissatisfaction with the system. And Muzafa in Nigeria says, I am jobless. I am not celebrating. So a reflection of comments there from right around the world. But as you can see, May Day still going strong in many countries.
Lucy, thanks very much indeed. Lucy Hockings in the World's Newsroom with a global sense of what May Day means. Of course, the most striking pictures of the day are probably those that we've seen come in from Greece and also from Bangladesh.